good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to all of whom has joined us and watching online. Today, I'm honored to host Ariel Halevi, who is an expert in the field of Hasbaraa and persuasion. Ariel will share some of his experience gathered in the last 20 years in the field of Hasbaraa and will teach us about persuasion principles for effective Hasbaraa. Also, we are excited to show you a new AI tool that we have developed together. Without any further delay, Ariel, the stage is yours.
Let's jump in. Now, in 2016, I wrote a book that talked about delaying gratification as a key factor in persuasion. And I wrote the book because I have terrible delayed gratification. So I'm not going to wait till the end of the session to show you this new innovation. I'm actually going to start the session with that. And then we're going to leave most of the session to the training itself. So a little bit of background. We, Malkiel and I and a few other people, several months ago, began developing an AI tool using the ChatGPT OpenAI platform that would be used to help generate responses to social media posts and other arguments against Israel. What is unique about the approach that we took compared to other initiatives in the AI area is that what we were emphasizing was persuasion that is based on psychology. So it's not that the AI will immediately recognize the document or the video or the historical fact and throw it back at the face of the person who is making a claim against Israel. It will generate a response based on the principles that we've been teaching over the last 3-4 months, like how to lead with empathy and how to pay attention to terminology and how to utilize principles of role reversal and how to consider the Palestinian perspective. So basically, for the first time in my life, instead of teaching a person these methods, I had to teach a computer, which I have to tell you in itself is a very, very interesting experience. How do you teach a computer the difference between being empathetic, but not necessarily agreeing with what the other person said? How do you teach a computer to understand what the right analogy is to respond to a situation without getting dragged into demagoguery? So it's quite an interesting experience. Here is what this platform looks like. Now, in terms of being able to access this platform, we're going to show you later how you can join the waiting list because we're not still ready to launch it. But basically, you see up here, it says Vayomar Copilot. And when you go into here, you choose the situation that's relevant to you. Is it a conversation with a member of community? Is it a conversation with a family member? Is it a conversation with a work colleague? Or is it an activity or engagement on social media, which we think is going to be most of the cases? Now, once you're ready to use it, you can copy paste into this field any post you see against Israel. Or if you're trying to respond to a colleague, you simply have to type in the arguments or the claims that you heard them make against Israel. So let's say I write here, the world must speak up against the genocide. Even writing these words makes me sick, but the genocide being committed these past several months by Israel in Gaza. We must stop the occupation army from the ethnic cleansing it is committing. I think I'll stop here. By the way, it's not necessarily just meant for extreme posts. It's actually mainly meant for the more moderate silent majority, which we believe is the key factor. Then you click here, generate posts, leveraging Vayomar's principles, right? I click here. And now what's happening in the background is that multiple AI agents are working together to create a post because we created one agent for every principle. So there's an AI agent specifically specializing in empathy, and another one specifically specializing in terminology. And each one of them is creating a fragmented response. Those responses are come together here, and here's the response. So look at what it says. This is fully computer generated. it's clear you're feeling a strong sense of injustice and anguish over the situation in Gaza, which you perceive as deeply harmful and indeed and a need of urgent attention. While empathizing with the pain and suffering of all individuals affected by the conflict, it's also crucial to ensure, and as you can see, there's a whole response here. Now, you might look at this response and say, whoa, this is way too long. Please regenerate the response. You click on the regenerate, and it will say to you, what do you want? Why are you not happy with my post? Do you want it to be less formal? Do you want it to be shorter? Let's regenerate. And now it's going to take this outcome and it's going to change the style and it's going to change the length. Thinking again. And now we have a much shorter post. We totally get where you're coming from. Notice the informality. What's happening in Gaza hits the heart hard. And no, right? So it's very interesting. You can regenerate again. You can also say, wait a minute, I want to make this my own. So you click on edit and you can make whatever edit changes you want. And then when you click on save, you will be offered, and this may not be a free feature only because of how much it's costing us, but we're going to have a feature that says, hey, would you like us to study your editing responses and gradually learn how to generate posts that are specific to your personal voice, right? So Michal, if you edit this and make changes, GPT, our system can learn your changes. And then when you edit the next one, it will learn the next one. By the third and fourth and fifth one, it will generate responses that are in consideration of your previous edits until our tool becomes your voice. You can also save it for next use and you can copy it. If you want to get a better sense of how we did it, you can look under the hood, click here, and here is every one of the agents and what it came up with before it generated this into a full post. So if you're interested in this, and this is something that you want to be part of, you can go to the homepage, and Malkiel, maybe you can put the link here, and you can sign up to join the waiting list. And when we are ready to start inviting people to use the tool, you will automatically be notified. The intention is that this tool will be free, so you'll be able to use it without having to pay. But we will be looking for sponsorships from the Jewish community, philanthropy, because it's going to be costing us credits. Every time you do an edit or a post, it costs us several cents that we have to pay to the OpenAI platform. So just wanted to share with you. Any questions about this? Any responses? If not, we can jump straight into the lesson. Yes, Malkiel.
I would like to ask for an apology because some of the boxes were not aligned. Okay, so it's just an MVP, just it's a blue screen in the Microsoft demo. So it will be looking great also in mobile. I mean, it's a matter of days. But please join and try for yourself. It's amazing. I urge you to try just inserting gibberish, like X, Y, Z, 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 ABC, ABC, and look what the GPT will have to say. It will say something like, I feel that you are very upset and you don't know how to put your feelings into words. And then it's interesting. Okay. Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you. Can you unmute everybody? First of all, Sigi, thank you very much. I can tell you that in terms of how we think of funding this, we're going to be creating a page where people can donate tokens, right? So every token, unfortunately, this is still expensive. And we have to cover the cost of OpenAI and the cost of the research and development process. So every post is approximately 10 to 15 cents, something like that. We're going to try to make that much lower as the system becomes smarter. But we're going to have a page where you can come in, swipe your credit card and say, I want to contribute 100 tokens to the website. But we don't plan on charging the end users. And we are going to also try to see if we can get some free tokens from Microsoft. So 1 second, Lena, before we give you the ability to speak, I know that Galit wanted to say something, right, Galit?
I just wanted to say that it's amazing because you combined here few tools of few ways how to respond, and it's not it won't be the same every time. So I like it very much.
I'm very happy to hear that. And I can tell you that later on, there are some additional features that we're going to be including. For example, you can put in the social media profile of the person who wrote the post, and our system will read their historical posts and use that to confront them with certain arguments that they're making based on their own philosophy and values. And we're also going to scan their personal profiles for personal information like they're vegan, like I am, or they love a certain musical style. And our agent will incorporate references to common denominators that establish rapport. We're also going to use Open API to connect to other websites like Stand for Israel and like that Kalturab created. There are all kinds of databases with really valuable information. So the system will pull that information from those platforms and incorporate that into the responses in the right time, when the time is right. Because right now our principles say don't push back, don't persuade, listen, ask questions, establish a connection. Okay, we'll take 2 questions and then I want to jump in because we promised you a training today. So Lena, please. Lena.
My question is, I saw that you can change, like to make a longer or shorter response, or according to family member or according to social media.
Right.
My question is whether it is possible, or maybe in the future you want to make to change the style in the sense of like less empathy, more accusation, for example, of Hamas. Because for example, for me, the answer that I saw is not suitable, because I think in most of the cases, I would like to write more explicitly about what Hamas is doing, and not, yeah, you can't not notice that Hamas is also guilty. I want to change the style to be less empathy, more accusation of Hamas. Is it possible to have this option?
First of all, it's possible right away in terms of you can always edit the post. It's very important for us.
Yeah, I understand. The question is if you want to make maybe automatic, like less empathy, more like things like that. No, it's not something that you think is worth doing.
Well, it's an interesting question because
change the style in the sense of the tone or the, I don't know.
I think we might be able to be a little more firm, but you have to remember, Lena,
things like that.
So it's a delicate question. I'll be very honest with you, because we are teaching this engine to apply a very specific methodological approach that I am a very big believer of, and that I have used at this point probably over 10,000 conversations in the last 20 years. So we're trying to teach it a model that we believe that we teach. And we don't believe necessarily being more aggressive or more assertive. However, we do believe that machines should not replace people in this conversation, which is why we're always leaving the edit possibility open. And remember what I said, we're going to have a feature where it can learn your own style. So if you edit it and make it a little bit more aggressive, and you do that 4 or 5 times, it will start generating responses that are more like Lena and less like our model.
Okay.
And that way, I'm giving you the autonomy. I will not replace your voice. I have no moral authority to determine that I'm right and you're wrong in the style. I do have a predisposition in terms of what I believe. And so that's how we're planning on using it now. But listen, we will keep you posted. Please sign up to the website. We will maybe in a few months, we will start sending updates, and we're going to start creating continuous sessions or discussion sessions specifically for the people who use the platform. And I always want to learn more. So and Lena, we know your background. We know how much work you've been doing. I definitely want to get your feedback and input on this stuff. So we will definitely be in touch. Okay, Lara.
Hi, everyone. I was just wondering whether you considered storing the responses, because I find in response to my post, you see thematically the same. You're an oppressor. You're committing genocide. If you store the responses, that way we can maximize the use of funds, so that every time we're not regenerating the same response in response to the same themes that we hear that are anti-Israel, that we've all seen time and time again.
That's very wise, and that's already now in the system. So when you set up an account and you go to my account, it will have your history, so you can reuse. And we're thinking about adding another feature, which is hunting in packs, meaning I can connect with Ralph, Ifat, Yovel. I can connect to them in the system. And so when I wrote a post, they can get notified to reshare or so the idea is to
That's brilliant.
start connecting, because imagine if we can create a pack of 100,000 people responding at this, and that's how we balance out the social media algorithm. There isn't yet a solution in the pro-Israel world for aligning. You know what it's like. A Jew will build 2 synagogues, one to pray in and one that he will never step foot in, where we're so fragmented. So we're trying to see if we can use a system to create groups that will co-advocate. Go ahead, Malkiel.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I saw that Ralph had a question, but he didn't raise his hand. He rose his actual hand.
Oh, okay, good. I didn't see that.
Yeah, please.
Quickly, first of all, my only one question is, how soon can you have it? Because we need it yesterday. Secondly, do you have any module that will be able to give short, impactful, sort of what Lena said, answers on social media? What I saw so far is a bit long for social media, and we need the impactful ones. And 3, have you ever heard of or thought to maybe partner with Fax Commando?
So I don't know specifically about Fax Commando, but we do have a map of the various organizations that are creating solutions, and we plan on reaching out to them. We've spoken to a few in order to partner with them so that they can become a source that we draw information from as within the context of a specific response.
Oh.
Now, you raise a very interesting point that I want to address, and I'd also love feedback. There's good news and there's bad news with this solution. I'll start with the good news. It works. This approach to persuasion is extremely impactful. I've been doing this for about 20 years now. It is very, very rare that I will end a conversation with somebody about Israel without having established a baseline of consent to some degree, or without ending the call with a conversation with them saying, I'd love to continue talking with you in case we didn't have time. That's the good news. The bad news is this real persuasion is never about a 1-2 punch. People don't change their mind because of one killer argument or one killer fact. They change their mind as a result of a combination of a cognitive and emotional process that is very much connected to the individual they're having the conversation with. So on the one hand, I think you're absolutely right that the question is that the answers are currently too long, and we will be teaching the system to shorten its answers. It might even be ready in a week. Plus, you can always edit it down. Plus, you can always regenerate a shorter response. So we're definitely looking for shorter responses. However, we're trying to create responses that educate our users. We want to give you something that you can use not just on social media. And finally, this system is good for people who are looking to do a multiple round of conversation with a specific individual. This is not about somebody writing a false fact about Israel and us going on their page and just ramming into them and giving them a counter argument that's 2 paragraphs long or 1 paragraph long. I know that's more satisfying, and I know that social media is very much about fast and shallow, but fast and shallow doesn't change opinions. And so we are offering a new approach, which is less sexy, so to speak, and it will be specifically effective for people who are really willing to commit to a process of changing other people's mind, which doesn't happen in a single response. I hope that answers your question. Now, in terms of when is it going to be ready, I am currently training the system. My colleague Yaron is training the system. Gilad Newman on the call will be starting to train the system as well. Yeah, remember, everything we're doing is volunteer-based while we have a day job. So it's a bit slow. But what I've decided to do is I'm going to set up a course called Black Belt in Israel Advocacy. It's going to be approximately 5 sessions of 2 hours each. And I'm going to offer this course for free to people who are willing at the end of this course to use what I taught them to help us train the system. Okay? Which is not nothing, because it means you're investing 10 hours in the course. You're going to get homework in the course. And then every every post that we teach the system to respond is at least 15 minutes. So it's a difficult process. So I don't think we're going to be ready to really take the world by storm before another 2 or 3 months. But we're working on it. And we will be letting people join the beta early, just to iron out some wrinkles in the system and to start spreading the word, which is why we want you to sign up to the waiting list.
Okay, just there is, when you try to register, it says there is a technical issue. I see that's not just me, but others also have this problem.
About technical issues, if you cannot register, because I did see that this issue was solved. I mean, the same person, the Iris, wrote that she couldn't register, but then she updated that it was fine. But if you have a problem, you can send me a private message right here, or we have a feedback button in the site. We need your feedbacks. We need your feedbacks about the front end, about back end, about what you think about the system. How can we improve ourselves? Right now, you are the first 20 people to ever see the site, and we need information from the audience. So please feel free to tackle us with any issue, technical or suggestions or whatever, and we'll be here to address your call.
Referral code is something that we have here, and I missed, or we don't have?
Again, please?
We need to put referral code.
No, the referral system is once you will be in, the referral code is something you can give to your friend and then refer him to the site. And actually, that's the only way that people will be able to get in the site in the beginning, because that's or even the whole time, because that's the only way we can keep it only to our eyes, like only to pro-Israel eyes.
Which answers the question of do we want to? Yovel asked if we want to advertise this website. We do not. We are going to verify every single user until we can't handle the bandwidth. We're going to verify it by having people put in their LinkedIn and other social media profiles. We're going to verify that they're real. In the beginning, we're going to call them up and have a video call with them to see that they're real. There's quality assurance here, and we don't want to let people access into the website in ways that could damage the engine. So, but if you're on the call today, consider yourself already on the list of invites to the system. And once you'll be in, you'll be able to refer people, and that's another way of verifying that only the right people are using the system. I will tell you that there is a bigger idea behind this system, and it's not just the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I have spent the last 4 to 5 years spending some of my free time studying the phenomena called social polarization, which is a growing phenomena, which is, I believe, one of the greatest existential threats to Western democracies. And the statistics around this are very troubling. And if you look at the responses that our system is generating, they are meant to minimize polarization. They are meant to cool down the tensions. They're meant to create a bridge. And so that's part of what we're looking to achieve here as well. Okay, should we jump into the main topic of the day?
Please do.
And if you want, I'll stay. We can make the session 15 minutes longer to cover more ground, provided that it's respectful to everybody's time. Okay, so we're going to talk today about this field called non-rational persuasion. Let me share my screen. You all see my screen?
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking specifically about how we can manage and leverage this thing called cognitive biases. Now, before I jump in and explain what non-rational persuasion is and what cognitive biases are, I want to begin by showing you a fundamental high-level concept that has to do with how people relate to one another. I think one of the most overlooked concepts in the field of interpersonal communication, persuasion, influence, is that we think people are persuaded by ideas, which is not entirely untrue, but they are first and foremost persuaded by other people. People must feel a connection to you before they can feel a connection to your ideas. Just ideas on their own even if they're the most solid ideas, will not necessarily break through the consciousness or the emotional barriers of the people we're communicating with. The first thing we need them to feel comfortable with is us. And so when you look at how the human brain relates to people at a very basic level, they are either a stranger, right? Because we meet somebody Galit, you and I meet for the first time. Something in our brain looks for past references. If I find no past references, my brain will determine that you're a stranger. I've never seen you before. Stranger equals danger. You're unknown. You came from another town. You came from another village. I don't know you. You're dangerous. If I see you around, you've come to several of our training sessions. My brain recognizes you. You're not a complete stranger to me. We've interacted before and you didn't kill me. You didn't even try to kill me. Well, now you're familiar to me. I've seen you around. My brain is a little bit more relaxed. It will not release the same levels of stress hormones that it might in a stranger situation. And maybe after a few times of you being around, we strike up a conversation and we discover that we have certain things in common. We both like certain types of dogs. We both read Harry Potter and loved it. We both played poker. We both traveled to a unique destination somewhere in the world. Okay, now we have something in common. I am much more comfortable engaging with you. I'm going to be more open. I'm going to be more willing to hear you. And when we discover that we have very specific things in common, like a common enemy, a common problem, or a common objective, like making sure Israel remains a strong country, then we are ready to become allies. And many, many times what I find is that when people are trying to engage other people, especially on social media, where we are by definition engaging with strangers, we ignore this journey. We ignore the whole, the stranger to ally axis. And we jump right in, regardless of who the person is and what our relationship is. And we say, you know what, Ralph? Let me tell you why you're wrong. Okay? That's a sure way of having a wall come down between us. Doesn't matter that I'm going to feel great sounding smart and making you feel that you're wrong in front of your community, but did I really reach Ralph? Is he going to want to listen to me? Are we going to have a longer conversation? If we don't have a longer conversation, my window of opportunity to influence Ralph is smaller. And we know that persuasion is a process. People don't change their mind overnight. And if they do, they're very well likely to root back to their original opinion just as quickly. So with this foundational concept in mind, I want to remind you, because we've spoken about this before, that for the most part, the Homo sapien is not a rational agent. And while we see the debates online many times are an exchange of arguments and facts, and many, many times the process of persuasion is driven by an approach that is rational, that is trying to influence a brain that is not rational. And so this is the guy I'm talking about. This guy on the left is an Israeli professor, world-renowned, the first psychologist ever to win the Nobel Prize in economics for his shared research with his colleague, Professor Amos Tversky, who sadly died of cancer before he could also be acknowledged. And what they did over the years is they discovered, they revolutionized the field of behavioral economics and realized that we have two systems in our brain that are happening at the same time. System 2 is the rational mind, the problem solver, the brain that can think in nuance, the brain that can think in contradictions. Like I can meet a doctor who's very, very unpleasant. We've met those doctors before, right? And tell myself, yeah, she's unpleasant or he's unpleasant, but they're the best doctor there. They can save my life. That duality, that mix is a system 2 mix. But my system 1 doesn't like that doctor. And my system 1 is going to have a material impact on how I relate or how willing I am to be treated by this individual. So Kahneman and Tversky started looking at how do people make decisions? What drives the way we respond to our environment? And they discovered that the system 1 that I just spoke about is actually made up of a long list of these things called cognitive biases. A cognitive bias is a rule of thumb hardwired into our brain that works very simply. If, then, right? So I see Gilad. You know, he's got these glasses. He's got a very firm face. He has the bald head like Captain Picard from Star Trek: The Next Generation. What an intelligent guy. Okay? I see Lara. You know, she's got this nice smile. She looks like somebody that I know that I like. Boom, right? Rules of thumb. And what Kahneman and Tversky did is they started mapping these rules of thumb. Every one of these lines in this circle is a rule of thumb. And I want you to think of the rules of thumb as being like these miniature applications in our brain. And they're automatically triggered. We have no control over them. And they affect 95% of our daily decisions. And they are what causes us to deviate away from rational thinking. And in this case, when I talk about rational thinking, I talk about the ability to make a decision that is the best option for me. Maximizing utility, choosing the optimal choice. Most of the time, we fail to do that. So I'm going to show you now some of these cognitive biases so that we can improve our awareness. We can become more cognizant of stimuli response dynamics in our environment and the stimulations we are generating to other people. And that once we have that awareness, we can engage in control, right? And this basically, awareness and control, that's at the heart of the book that I wrote in 2016. So let's jump right in. I'm going to move quickly because I want to leave time for questions, okay? The endowment effects. This experiment is one of my favorites. Students show up in a classroom, in a hall, in a college or a university in America, and there's a gift waiting for them on their seat. Half the students received a gift in the form of a crisp $5 bill. The other half received a brand new coffee mug. All students, regardless of the gift that they were given, were asked to write down on a note how much they thought the coffee mug was worth. And when they collected all the notes from the people who got the mug and from the people who got the $5, and they averaged out their estimates, this is what they came up with. The people who got the mug estimated on average that it was worth more than $7. And the people who got the $5 estimated that it's worth less than $3. What a coincidence, right? The endowment effect is a cognitive bias in our brain that will automatically cause us to over-appreciate anything that is our own. If I made it, it's better. If it's my product, it's better. What's interesting about the endowment effect is that it's not just about material goods, it's also about intangible things like ideas, culture, philosophy, value systems. And so when I am confronted with an idea that contradicts my own belief system, rather than explore that idea, maybe it's better than mine, I will automatically underappreciate it because it's not mine. Which is why one of the key principles of persuasion is that people are best persuaded by conclusions they think they reach themselves. Which is why leading a persuasion process with questions rather than just dictating answers is a really great way of helping people reach a conclusion, because when they provide the answer, it automatically triggers the endowment effect because they provided the answer. And sometimes a great way of triggering the endowment effect with somebody else is in a conversation. After I did share some of my opinions, I might turn to you, Dana, and say, Dana, listen, I know you don't agree with everything that I just said, of course. But is there anything at all that I said that somehow resonates with you? Is there any point that I made that you do agree with? By getting Dana to verbalize out loud an answer, even if there's just one idea that she's agreeing with, I am automatically strengthening her commitment to that idea, because now her brain heard it come out of her mouth, not mine. Endowment effect. Okay? Second cognitive bias, loss aversion. So Kahneman and Tversky ran a very interesting experiment, right? They connected people to various electrodes that monitored biofeedback. Biofeedback is any kind of information our body generates in a response to a situation. If I get excited and I smile and my pupils dilate, or if my muscles contract out of tension, or if my physical posture changes, or if my heartbeat changes, or if I start sweating, these are all types of information that collectively are called biofeedback. So they connected people to electrodes that monitored their biofeedback, and then they had them play a game. Either they won $10 or they lost $10. Somebody get Gilad a cup of coffee quickly with caffeine. I know it's been a long day. When people won $10, they had a 5 out of 10 intensity response. They were happy. They celebrated. Great. I just won $10. When they lost $10, their body's response was twice as intensive. Even when the $10 they lost were the very same $10 they won a minute ago, meaning it was never theirs to begin with. And Kahneman I heard him in an interview once say that loss aversion by far is the most significant cognitive bias that he and Tversky discovered. We hate losing more than we like winning. This is very important because fear of loss can be a very powerful motivator. And that we have to think about, if somebody presents an opinion to us, we should do this, we should do that. It is our job to focus their awareness on the possible risks and downsides of the position they are presenting. What are we losing as a result of this? And so on and so forth. This is classic examples of loss aversion in advertising. Look at what it says here. Flash sale, only today. Only today. Dana, you better respond now. You're going to lose it. You're going to lose that bag, right? Or look what they said here. You could be wasting 194 pounds. They didn't say you could be saving, right? They said you're going to be, when I see wasting 194 pounds, I get stressed. Wait a minute, what do you mean? Right? Let me look deeper. I don't know how many of you have recently booked a hotel room, but it's unbelievable. The statistics is remarkable. Every single time I look for a hotel online, it just happens to be running out of rooms, right? Which, of course, if I don't do it now, I'm going to lose this opportunity. That's loss aversion. Okay, the availability heuristic. This is one of my favorites. A college professor, students are the best, breeding ground for experiments in social psychology. So this college professor on the last session of the semester turns to his students and says, listen, faculty is about to come here in about 10 minutes, and they're going to hand out a survey where you're going to have to provide your feedback on this course. And that's great. But the problem is I'm only going to get the results from them in like 4 to 6 weeks. And I want to start working on the next semester now. So if you don't mind, before they show up, would you please do me like an informal survey and do me help me answer 2 questions. Do me a favor. I want you to answer 2 questions. Number 1, what are 3 things that you liked about the course? Number 2, what are 12 things you didn't like about the course? And if you don't mind, please start with the first one. Why did he do this? He was already influencing the students by merely asking for 4 times the amount of bad things than the good things. What was the message he was conveying to them? I really want to improve. I really care about, I'm not looking for compliments. I'm not looking for, I really want to get better. So that already is a great way of priming the audience. But the real magic happens next. Students sit down and they start writing what they liked about the course. Took them about 30 seconds to complete 3 things. Very simple. Maybe a minute. Then they start looking for 12 things they don't like about the course. So they start writing, I didn't like the hour of the day. It was too early in the morning. Don't love that it was on Fridays. I felt that the reading assignments were a bit too aggressive, took up too much time. I thought the exams were a little bit too difficult. I didn't love one of the guest speakers that you brought in. That's 5. And he's like, please get to 12. And they start scratching their heads. They need to get to 12. Okay, so what the hell? Maybe we could have had a better classroom. What else? I got to get to 12. It's difficult. This is hard. I can't. Yeah, okay, you know what? The online website could have been done better. 7, and boom, they ran out of time. So on average, they submitted 3 things they liked and 7 things they didn't like, but they never got to 12. And then faculty showed up, gave them the survey, and the results were positive through the roof. Why? Because the way our brain works is our brain is a very sophisticated statistical machine. It tries to make sense of the world by breaking the world up into different categories. This has a flat surface and it's got 4 legs. Oh, it's a chair. And now I can see a million different types of designs, but my brain knows it's a chair, right? We categorize the world. And once we categorize the world, we try to figure out, is the category large or small? So it's all about how readily available examples are from the category. So when I was asked to give things that I liked about the course, it was easy. 1, 2, 3. They were readily available. The exercise was easy. What was the brain's conclusion? The category called things I like about the course must be very big, because it was very easy to complete the task. The category called things I didn't like about the course must be very small, even though they got to 7, because they didn't get to 12. They failed to complete it. So how can we use the availability heuristic when we try to influence people? For example, if somebody says to me, why should I be vegan? I said, are you kidding? Why should you be vegan? You want me to talk about the health benefits? You want me to talk about the environmental benefits? You want me to talk about the ethical benefits? Should I go on? Now, I only have 3 arguments. But the way they're presented, the fact that I provide them easily, 1, 2, 3, what do you want me to talk about? I'll talk anything you want. I'm triggering the availability heuristic in the other person, getting their brain to think, oh, wow, Ariel was able to provide 3 examples so quickly, so confidently. The category called arguments in favor of being vegan must be very large. Make sense to everybody? I'm running through this quickly because I want to leave us time for Q&A. Okay, here are just a few examples of how we see the availability heuristic in advertising and marketing. When you go to a website, it says, look at all our clients. Oh, wow. Or, we have every single car you might want. That's availability heuristic. I did my master's program in Homeland Security and Counterterrorism back in 2008. And one of the final papers I wrote was that we must consider the availability heuristic as a means of countering terrorism by immunizing the public against fear, by limiting media reporting of events, not avoiding it altogether. But we now live in a time where we have 24/7 news cycles. And because producing the news is expensive, what CNN and Al Jazeera and all these, mass media outlets do is they recycle the news. And so you see the same attack 4 or 5 times. And in Israel, every hour on the hour, we have a news flash and they repeat the same news. And when it's 8 p.m., they show you 3 suicide attacks that happened all around the world in the last week. And you're like, oh my God, there's terrorism everywhere. I'm not safe. But that's not true. Terrorism is actually the safest form of warfare compared to any other form of warfare, but it's the one that generates the highest level of anxiety. So that's an example of the availability heuristic. That's why I don't listen to the news anymore. Because what the news does is it curates all the bad news and gives it to me in one pump all day long, and it distorts my perception of the world, which is actually better than we think. Okay, the expert heuristic. When we believe, if I'm talking to Ron, and Ron says something, or he's wearing this white coat with a name tag, and he looks very professional. Wow, this guy must be an expert, right? When we think that the other person is an expert, we are much more likely to accept what they say as being true, regardless of the level of analysis we conduct on the actual content. Our brain, before it considers the content, considers the source. And if my brain concludes, right, that Yovel is an expert in her field, it's automatically going to tend to believe her more even before it analyzes her content. If Miss Aniston is endorsing this product, it must be amazing. I mean, look, she's gorgeous. Not to mention the whole halo effect. Look at this advertisement. This is real. This is a real ad from, I think, the 50s or the 60s, right? This is doctors advertising smoking. I mean, it's a doctor. So it can't be dangerous, right? Look at this. I mean, listen, if the number one spy wears this watch, then what can I tell you? It must be an amazing watch. It must be robust. Many times when we communicate with people in a process of persuasion, again, we ignore the way they perceive us. This is very connected to what I said in the beginning. We jump right into the content as if the source of the content or their impression of me is unimportant. We must establish our own credibility. And so sometimes it's worth demonstrating our expertise through some of the examples we give or some of the books or sources we reference. Even quoting somebody establishes our expertise. Because when I say something like, but when Albert Einstein said so and so, basically what I'm saying is don't listen to me, listen to him. He was a genius. I'm only bringing his wisdom forward. So that's a really important way of establishing a better predisposition to listen to us, is to establish our own expertise in the eyes of the other person. Okay. The other side of the coin is called the scientific heuristic. The scientific heuristic is actually not about the source, but actually about the viability of the content. What you're looking at here is the back end of an Orbit gum package. Does anybody know what we're looking at here? What this is? Let me give you a closer look. I'll tell you what your brain is telling you right now, even before you make sense of the graph. Ooh, it's scientific. It must be true. I saw a graph. That's how our brain works. When we see pie charts and graphs and statistics, then it triggers in our brain something called the scientific heuristic, and it lends itself to us believing. Now, what this graph is saying is, listen, if you chew Orbit gum, it will actually lower the pH levels in your mouth, which are not healthy. And that's true. But there's something they left out. It's not the gum that's doing it. It's the chewing that's doing it. If you each take a piece of paper right now, tear it apart and put it in your mouth and chew, it will have the same exact effect. But we see this and we're like, oh, wow, this gum, it must be medical. It's scientific. It's woof. This is not like any other gum. This gum has a graph. That's how our brain, and I encourage you to pay attention to the advertisements. Try to train your brain on recognizing all of these tools that I'm giving you, all these cognitive biases, by starting to pay attention to them in ads and see how many people are using them, how many politicians use them, and so on and so forth. Okay, the confirmation bias. Okay, very similar to the endowment effect, but slightly different. Okay. On the left, we have the world around us, objectively. On the right, we have what we believe. What are we going to pay attention to? This part. So if somebody came up to me and said, hey, Ariel, listen, do you know that a new paper came out showing that animals don't suffer at all when you kill them? You don't need to be vegan for ethical reasons anymore. What am I likely to say? Oh, interesting, new science, let me read it? Or am I going to say, oh yeah, sure, another paper financed by the factory farming industry? Our brain selects the content that comes into our, prioritizes content. Does it support what I already believe? Ooh, it must be accurate. Does it contradict what I believe? Then I'm going to disregard. Which is why it is very, very important to establish myself as an acceptable source of information to the other person, to establish a sense of common denominators. Part of the reason our tool, the GPT tool, is going to scan the history posts of the people we are responding to is because we want to begin by establishing a connection with them about something they said 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, not by putting it in their face and saying, oh yeah, Ron, but what about what you said 3 weeks ago? No, that's antagonistic. But by actually using statistical sources that Ron used in the past in order to bypass the confirmation bias. And so it's very important. If we don't consider the confirmation bias and we just plow forward and challenge what people say, they are going to filter us out before considering what we say, because we are outside of the realm of what they believe. We have to find a way of getting into that circle first. And then from within, we can persuade them. Okay. This is, again, one of my favorites, partly because I love playing poker. Okay, let me give you an example, a situation. A friend of yours is at a party with you, and you've watched them down 5 bottles of beer in the last 90 minutes. They are clearly drunk. And then suddenly you see them walking towards the door, and you're like, where are you going? I'm going home. Okay, you really shouldn't drive. Let me get you an Uber. Let me drive you home. You had too much. And your friend says, don't worry about it. I live 7 minutes from here. What are you talking? I'm fine. And they walk out. And they call you 10 minutes later. And they say all smug on the phone, hey, Dana, see, I made it home. Was the decision to drive home a good one? Yeah, Michal, you're nodding your head, but you're shaking your head, but they made it home safely. Doesn't the outcome basically determine the quality of the decision? So the answer, of course, is no. This is called outcome bias or hindsight bias or resulting, where we evaluate the quality of the decision based on the outcome. And it's very intuitive, right? It's very natural to think if the outcome is good, the decision must have been good. But that, of course, is a big fallacy, untrue. The real way of knowing if the decision was good is letting him drive 100 times drunk and seeing how many times he gets into an accident. And so it's a statistical thing. Now, many, many times when people make arguments, they justify their arguments using outcomes and saying, see, I told you we shouldn't have bombed them. Or I told you we should have bombed them. Why? Well, look at the outcome. Big mistake. And I'm showing you all of these cognitive biases because I want you not only to learn how to use them, I want you to also learn how to avoid them. And with that, I'm going to stop and I'm going to open it up for questions. Talk to me. And if you want, we can even give an example. You can bring up a situation, or somebody says something against Israel, and we can together explore how we can use or leverage these cognitive biases to affect the other person. And now I can finally see what people wrote. Okay.
Please, Gil.
Go ahead, Gil. Floor is yours. Gil?
You should unmute yourself.
Okay, Gil, I think, is having technical problems. Malkiel, they're saying they can't. Maybe you can remove the ban.
Let's try again. I apologize. The view was
problem.
not. Yeah.
Ungag us.
Exactly.
Okay, feel free.
Ifat, you're on mute if you're saying something. Though I love the blue skies behind you. Okay, I don't know. We're having issues with the muting. Gil, you want to try again?
Hi.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Hey. Yes.
Hey. So here's my question. I've heard lectures of yours before. I am fairly familiar with cognitive biases. I took to heart the thing you said last time I heard you speak about these things, that the emotional impact of your argument oftentimes is way more powerful than your actual argumentation.
Right.
All that being said, I find it extremely difficult to rewire my brain to where, because in a sense, the fact that I am aware of all these biases and those quote unquote tricks you can pull kind of makes me like the kind of things that will convince me often are logical arguments that are well established, and when I can see the through line of your logic. So it's really hard for me to reform my brain to where I am not making those sort of arguments, even though I sort of understand it. Most people are not going to be affected by those as much, which is really frustrating.
Yep. Well, first of all, yes, persuasion is a inherently frustrating process.
You listen to people. There's a guy called Cenk Uygur, and you wanted to as an example, so I figured I'll bring him up. So he is, in my mind, a terrible debater. He does many debates. You might have heard him. Essentially, all he does is he yells. He uses very like traumatic, disgusting imagery. He'll talk about children's limbs being pulled out of rebel in Gaza, and he does all these things that are really, like, all he does is go for this visceral, and I think he knows what he's doing. I have no idea, and when you talk to, when you're facing a guy like that, I mean, you don't want to stoop to their level, but in the back of your mind, you know that he probably, for like the vast majority of the audience, he's gonna have, they're probably thinking that he's doing a good job, So I have no idea, one, how to put myself in that mindset, and two, how to react to someone who is that adept at using those tools.
Okay. So I think, first of all, the idea is not to completely abandon rational thinking. The idea is to combine rational thought with non-rational persuasion. I want you to think about the following analogy, right? A pill that can make your migraine go away in 10 seconds. If you've ever had a migraine, you know that this is the holy grail. Now that we have the pill, now that we were successful in our, in developing the chemical compound that can create the beta blockers in your brain, now we're also going to look at the shape of the pill so that it doesn't scratch your throat going down. And we're going to look at the coating of the pill, that it's got like a bubblegum taste. We want to make sure that we have both a rational approach, an argument, and a non-rational coating. The non-rational coating is like the oil or the lubricant that makes the pill go down. Now, there are definitely those who will use visceral, basic, very easy to understand images and statements to engage their audiences emotionally. And in fact, for the past 30 years, at least what I'm aware of, 30, 40 years, that is what the Palestinians have been doing as a general mantra. It hasn't worked for them.
I know. I would say that.
I would say that. Go to the HasbaraToolbox.com, look at the history of the surveys. The people will respond and they might empathize with the Palestinians, but the fact remains that when you look at Israel's progress in the diplomatic arena and in the field of public opinion up until somewhere in December, and going back many, many years, the movement has consistently been in our favor.
Right.
However, we are now entering a new phase of the war where we are losing ground fast. Because we are at a very, very extreme situation. Because of the amount of casualties, because of the imagery, because of the power social media is playing that it hasn't played 10 years ago, because of the way our current government is perceived, and I don't want to get into politics here today. So there are many, many barriers standing in our way. I am going to propose to you that there are several steps that you want to use. Step number one, get the other person to feel comfortable with you. Step number two, have really good rational answers to provide to the things they say when the time is right. Step number three, use cognitive biases to help deliver your rational message. Now, will it ever get easier? Yes, to a degree. Once you develop a mastery in this, it will get easier. Will it ever get less frustrating? Maybe for you, for me, it never has.
I see.
It's hard. It's hard persuading people. It's very frustrating. Okay.
Just a short comment. I posted the link to Hasbaraa Toolbox. We have some new surveys that Joanna Landau have איך אומרים, לנתח?
has uploaded to the Hasbaraa Toolbox with her analysis.
Yeah, and you are very welcome to to be updated with those new surveys, because as Ariel mentioned in the beginning, it begins to show that we have to work harder now, much harder.
And I think it's only going to get worse. But what we also need to do is we need to set expectations with ourselves. There's not going to be a quick fix here. There's not going to be a 1-2 punch that changes people's mind. Real persuasion is a process. It is a marathon. However, for every one or group of people that we are successful in influencing, it will be very, very unlikely that they will then go ahead and change their mind again, unless somebody else puts in double the work that we did. So I'm seeing that people are dropping off, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So just to remind you, we are recording this session. We're going to make the session available to you so that you can rewatch it. And we invite you to stay in touch with us and to sign up to this new website that we just showed you, and to keep following Hasbaraa Toolbox. And we'll see you hopefully in our next session.
Wait, before everybody goes, I see that Yifat wanted to ask just a quick question.
Go ahead, Yifat. I'm here.
Well, I have one question that drives me nuts since the beginning of the war, is that from the Israeli perspective, as an Israeli, we're very familiar with the Islamic Republic of Iran, and that they are like this super evil Marvel character that took over Iran 40 years ago, and they have 5 armies like in Lebanon, in Syria. They're killing millions of people in the Middle East. And I feel that in relation to how they are the heart of the octopus, as they're being called here in France, where I live, like there's like zero content about that online. So how do you understand, like, how can you make sense of that? That the fact that there's like, for example, here in France where I am, there's like a huge Iranian movement, and they're demanding the European Council to determine the Iranian Islamic regime as a terrorist group. And like, A, Israel is not doing anything to help them, and B, the entire online war about Israel doesn't contain this discussion at all, you know? So I'm like, just how is it possible that there's like, we have this super evil villain in one side, and on the other side, people are attacking us to portray us as the evil, but the evil guy is just there. And how come Israel advocacy is obsessed with explaining how great the Jews are, instead of saying, sorry, it's not us, it's him? And like, do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's like the reality and the content online is like day and night. So how did it come to be? Are there like geniuses?
I think, listen, I don't have necessarily sufficient education in this field to give you a really valid, comprehensive answer. But I will tell you what I know, or what I've learned over the past 20 years when discussing the exact question you raised. And
Okay.
it's Iran, and before that it was Syria, and so on and so forth. And you had Libya, and you have China, and you have Russia, and the war in Ukraine right now. Unfortunately, not a shortage of villains in the world. So here are some here are some of the answers that I've received in the past. Number one, Israel has the capital of Jerusalem, which is the major religious city for 3 major religions in the world. We are simply more relevant and interesting to many people who generate the rating that pays the bill for the major news channels. Number 2, it is much easier to cover the news from Israel than it is from Iran or Russia. Years ago, I was told by somebody in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that Jerusalem has the highest number of international reporters and correspondents to any other country in the world, because the cost of keeping them there is lower than Paris or London or Munich. And all they need to do is hold a microphone with the old city of Jerusalem in the backdrop, and it's the most appealing production.
That's crazy.
You understand? So it's a combination of cost of production, profitability of production, general appeal. And I would argue that some say that Israel is held to a higher standard than Russia, and exactly safety as well. You can't report freely out of Iran and out of Gaza and out of Egypt the same way you can out of Israel. But also, Jews are one of the arguments that I used a lot with people is I would say to people, tell me, why are you focusing so much on Israel? Why not Russia? Why not China? And they said, Ariel, why do you compare yourself to these rogue nations? I hold you to a higher standard because you're a democracy. And then I say to them, I'm sorry, what? And they said, you're a democracy. I said, oh, can you repeat that a third time, please? Because 2 minutes ago, you said I was an apartheid country. So you have to make up your mind, right? So
but double standard is the cornerstone of anti-Semitism, as Natalie Sharansky said. So
that's true.
What is this? The 3D, no? Double standard, dehumanization, and delegitimization. All I'm saying is the reason I refer to that is because, I'm an admin in OCD7, and we have people from all over the world, and we have people in Canada, a big community of people that came from Ukraine, and they say that they feel that this is like a replay, that all the online propaganda that they suffered from Russia, it's like replayed again, and then it's like Iran versus Israel. But somehow they were able to win, and we're losing. So that's my, what's the difference?
No, wait. Ifat, I don't think we're losing.
Okay.
I don't think we're losing. I want to remind you again, you thinking that we're losing is the availability heuristic triggering your brain.
Okay.
Israel was...
Yeah, I'm on it with you. I love the idea that we're not losing. That's a great idea.
By the way, I want to give you one more reason to your previous answer, and then I'll tell you why I don't think we're losing yet. Okay?
Okay.
The new variable in the equation over the last few years is automatic social media robots.
Yeah.
That can basically, for every one robot, can be equivalent to like 10 or 100 humans.
Yeah.
Iran has 17,000 humans running social media activity online, and another 2 million bots. 2 million bots.
Wow. We know that? That's like a thing that we know?
We know.
That's amazing.
And so what they're doing is a robot can work 24/7. And what these robots are doing is they're inflaming the discussion. They're creating polarization. By the way, Iran is not the only one doing this. Back in 2012, Russia, in what became known as the famous Cambridge Analytica fiasco, spent 4 years constantly generating content that was targeting extreme groups in America, leading up to the 2016 elections, trying to create a higher election turnout among the extremists to create a unique advantage to Trump, which worked. And so we have a new set of rules. And for the time being, online sentiment has not yet correlated with offline sentiment. Meaning, if you look at the online sentiment and you compare it with international policymaking, you find that it's not crossing over. Israel was sued by South Africa in The Hague. Remember? Just recently.
Yeah.
Did we lose that case?
No, but the Red Cross and the UN Human Rights Committee are controlled by Iran, and so that's crossover.
Do you know the history of the UN Human Rights Committee? Do you know who are listed as part of the presidents of that prestigious UN organization?
It's a mafia club. It's crazy.
But they haven't been successful. They can pass as many resolutions as they want against us, unless it reaches the Security Council, in which the U.S. has a veto right. It won't change. We're good. So I'm not
So
saying
what you said is that we need 2 million bots. That's the answer.
I actually we could, but I don't believe in bots fighting our war for us. I think we have to keep the humans in the loop, and we have to make every one of us as powerful as a bot, which is bringing us full circle to what I showed you in the beginning of our session. We want every one of the people posting on behalf of Israel to use the power of technology to amplify the effectiveness of their response, and in the process, learn how to be better. So every time you use our platform, you'll be learning how to be better. So that next time you're in the cafeteria at work, you don't have time to look it up on our system. You'll already know how to answer the next question.
Amazing.
Okay. Dana,
thank you.
Last question for today. Thank you, Ifat.
I wrote it in the chat because I didn't think I'd have the chance to bring it up. The thing is that most cases where I do need the help is like on Instagram or, these types of comments that you answer to. So it's not really building a relationship. And that's where I think we need the most help, is on those kind of platforms. So the question is, how can we use these tools for that?
That's a big dilemma, Dana, that I'm dealing with right now. Because I just don't believe in the impact of that. I think it provides instant gratification, but I don't think it necessarily moves the needle. But what I am thinking is, I don't know if you said it before. No, I think Lara suggested before that people should be able to save their previous posts. Mm-hmm. So at some point, if you use our system enough times, at some point, you will have a repository of posts. Mm-hmm. And you'll just be able to go in, copy, paste, or we might even have a situation where you give our platform permission to post on your behalf in your link. I don't love that option, by the way. I don't love the option of removing the human from the loop. I think that's not a healthy long-term strategy.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm aware of the need for a quick fix, and I know that people want a fast response.
But I'm not just talking about how long it will take me to post it. I'm talking about how long it will take the other guy to read it,
Oh, no, but that's different. Making the answer shorter, that's a technological feature that exists now. It works.
But you can't keep all these elements that you're talking about of creating a relationship and trust and whatever, doing that, because that does require back and forth, and you don't always have that.
But if you don't have it, you're not going to change people's minds.
You kind of are answering to all those people that are going to read that comment. Someone can write a comment that sounds very valid about how we're killing too many people, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe they won't answer you, but a lot of people are going to read your answer to them, especially if they were seen by a lot of people.
That's right. That is a very valid point. And I think that right now, by the way, the problem we're having is that our system is generating those kind of responses. We're trying to teach it to go slower. Mm-hmm. So I think what you're saying is important, and we are on a learning journey. This is the first time we're doing this, so we're going to have to figure it out as we go along.
There may be a way to kind of analyze which responses get a lot of likes, for instance, like responses. For sure.
There's a company called Mozilla, I think, or Mozilla, and we've been engaging with them since the start of the war. And they do online sentiment analysis, and they look at what different words and phrases do to affect the follow-up of the conversation. Mm-hmm. And you can be sure that we're going to be using that if we can afford it. Right now, we received a small grant from the government that made it possible to create the system that I showed you, but we're going to need much more funding to get this going. And right now we're doing it at our own expense. So we're going to be moving at that rate. But your comment about actually doing effective assessments of the effectivity of the use of our tool, 100%, that's part of the roadmap.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for doing what you're doing anyway.
Thank you for showing up. I think we're both on the same team, and I really, really appreciate everybody. And I say this every time, showing up on these calls and taking time out of your day is just as important as me showing up on these calls and sharing information. I think we're all in the same boat, and I'm really, really grateful to feel that I'm not alone.
Cool. Thanks.
So hopefully we'll see you in our future sessions. And don't forget to go to the Hasbaraa Toolbox because it really is a very valuable resource. And we will be in touch with everybody who signs up as soon as the system is ready to be tested.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ariel, and thank you to everybody. We invite you to join us the next weeks to more interesting sessions.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day or evening.
Bye, everybody.